Hey guys, Ryan here, and today I want to talk about the differences between Kaizoku Sentai Gokaiger and Power Rangers Super Megaforce. Just 3 calendar years separate these two extremely polarizing takes on the same Sentai incarnation, the pirate theme that was never referred to as pirates in Power Rangers. And of course now in 2021 we've obviously got their 10 years after movie. It's all very exciting, very pleased that they're coming back, and even the 6th Ranger in the current Sentai equivalent of Zenkaiger is basically a homage to that series as well. And with still quite some time on the clock before we get round to my retro Zord reviews for the series, I thought what better time than now to talk about the differences between the Japanese and American interpretations. So here's why the Gokaiger toys are mostly better than Super Megaforce. And why mostly, do you wonder? Well, actually, let's start with that. It's the figures. And this is actually a bit of a toss-up, because there's strengths on both sides. With Japan, obviously their weak spot were the vinyl figures. Don't know why they always seem to endure, but they're not something that I'd ever be interested in. But then at the complete opposite end of the spectrum, we had SH figure arts for all 6 of the Gokaigers, and those things look miraculous. I never had them, because this was back when I thought that was too much to pay for a figure. Nowadays I'd be like, yeah sure, that seems reasonable, especially considering everything that you got with them in terms of accessories, and also of course in how flexible they were. You could basically mimic pretty much any of their signature poses from the show. They even gave you folded arms to replicate the Gokai Red's famous pose. Something else that I really liked was that they all came with their cockpit kind of captain's wheels, what get described as the Gokai Darin. I've actually bought the red one because that was the most frequently used, and actually Bandai's action heroes scale pretty alright with it once you've got him on his little stoop there. Not brilliant, but certainly acceptable. Then of course on the other side of the pond we had Bandai's action hero. Now this was a big step forwards from what they've been doing since 2010 with the 4-inch action figures for Mighty Morphin, Samurai, Super Samurai and Megaforce. I was extremely anxious at the time that they were going to stick with 4 inches for Super Megaforce. Luckily they didn't. I don't know if they just heard all of the backlash, but they actually upgraded the figures and sent them into a 5-inch scale, still smaller than what they'd come down from, but much better for seeing the details. And not only that, but they went all in on it. They gave us Mighty Morphin in the same scale in the same year, in the beginnings of their legacy line. And of course, who could forget, without any traditional power-ups for these 6 Rangers, apart from Gokai Silver over there, they actually did something unprecedented. They gave us every single Red Ranger from the 21-year past of Power Rangers, and pretty much most of the 6 Rangers as well. This at the time was incredible. This was something we'd never really had before. Bandai action heroes over the years had danced up and down in terms of scale and proportions, so they never really looked right when brought together as a group. But here, finally, was one unified scale where you could represent every series of the show. That was exceptional, and I had to have all of them. Not all of them, in that I managed to leave Super Samurai Red. I represented season 2 of the show with the 4-inch Lauren figure, a little bit too small, but I digress. I didn't really want all of the 6 Ranger figures as well, so I was able to just pick and choose. It was really just the kind of Forever Red image that I was after, and it did not disappoint. Although it was not easy to get hold of, especially here in England. We certainly did not get all of them released in our stores, and remember, this was back when we still had Toys R Us. But yeah, of course, using the magic of the internet, I was able to import over everything missing from our shores, and I think they were all reasonably priced, although I probably would have blocked out if they weren't. In my desperation to replicate the figure arts, not that the action heroes are comparable in any way, they are however quite nice plastic, really nicely painted, and I didn't actually have any problems with details on any of them, so you know, swings and roundabouts. Yeah, I painted their swords and blasters. I'm really happy that I was able to do that. I think they look way better because of it. And then of course in the 6-pack we got the Gokai Galleon Buster, or the Super Mega Cannon, which gave them an additional team accessory. I do like it when a team has a finisher weapon in which they can all use together. So yeah, figures are a weird one. Japan definitely cleared up with the SH figure arts, but I do appreciate they're not really toys, they are more for collectors, which is fine for someone of our age, but yeah, they are more fragile. You wouldn't use them in the same way maybe as action heroes, although to be fair, I am just using the action figure versions for displays and photos anyway. Onto the roleplay, and yep, this was it. This was where the gimmick really broke through and became a must-have, and Ranger keys. What more needs to be said on them other than Bandai on both sides of the ocean really struck gold. As hard as it was for either Japanese or American consumers to complete their teams, it was certainly quite fun. Would you dare say fun? I mean, it was in a sense, and you can definitely get the core Gokaiger team and pretty much all the reds that you want quite easily from the Japanese toy line as well. For America, much more difficult. America, of course, the scale is about a third smaller, but they did have the spring action, which was actually missing from the original Japanese keys, but that's actually something that they've resolved in the 2021 Legendary Mobirates. So, you know, I think that's a case where Japan had to give America credit. They actually improved on something. Though it does look like Japan's taking the crown back, because theirs have a button rather than just using friction spring method like we got in America. There was a bit of a backlash with the Japanese keys, because some of them you could only get like what were they called, candy toys I think, and you had to apply stickers yourselves. Stickers can obviously peel off, whereas in America they're all painted really quite well. The problem, of course, with America was just the release of them to begin with. They came out in 3-packs, which you would think would be relatively alright for teams of 6 Rangers, but it just wasn't. They just really messed up with how they did that. And for the majority of teams, it unfortunately wasn't as simple as just getting 2 packs and completing it. They threw in the spanner of 3rd packs and sometimes 4th packs, metallic keys, translucent keys, just keys you didn't need or want. The keys that just drove us around the houses and turned the collecting into more of an ordeal than it needed to be. And then of course the 20 key pack with Morpher, most of the keys in which you already would have had from the 3 packs, but hey, you had to get that to get the 3 exclusive keys with it. Yeah, they really trolled us hard. So yeah, Ranger keys, pros and cons on both sides. Pick your poison though, because neither America or Japan got that completely right. Onto the Mobirates, or the Legendary Morpher. I think just one of the greatest morphers from Power Rangers or Super Sentai. It is memorable, awesome, integrates the gimmick and just the kind of powers for the season just in a really full way. It didn't feel like it was tacked on in any way. It felt necessary to the core of the story and stuff, and with the keys. Yeah, obviously Mobirates is better in that the keypad actually works, and you can even type in loads of codes and it will reel off lots of phrases that are unique to it, or even the team names from all the Super Sentai series up into Gokaiger. Bandai, of course, took the best from that and put unique phrases into the Legendary Morpher. Ours, though, you have to use keys to unlock the sounds. There's no way to use the keypad like in Japan. So basically, you had to spend more money to unlock the features. Also, the American Morpher, unless a key is actually inserted in it, is much quieter in terms of the volume restriction. Presume that's some sort of health and safety thing, but yeah, it's noticeable. I must say though, the thing that really put me off about the Legendary Morpher, one, that the keys don't seem as sturdy. Like, it seems like you could rip off the legs really easily, which you don't really feel like you're going to do with the Japanese keys. But also that the crossed swords of the kind of fake skull and crossbones emblem, it's not right in America. They made it work differently, and it's very annoying because when you have the Morpher in its closed position, you just see it wrong, and it's fine when it's open, which is pretty much how I always keep mine. But yeah, that's another massive one-up that Japan has over America. For the Gokaiger's 2 main weapons, the sword and the blaster, no question, the Japanese versions are just better. They feel better in larger hands. Obviously, you still got the full-size keys, which work properly. The Gokai blaster has a chamber which pops up and clips down just like on the show. And actually quite similar to the Chroma Fury saber from Hasbro's Dino Fury line, the blade actually lights up different colours. This one, you use the different Ranger keys and you simulate a different light effect. In fact, the only downside I have about the Japanese sidearms is how short the blade is on the saber. I really wish that was bigger. Does anyone know where you can buy like a custom that will fit over the top of it? I don't really want to like rip it apart, but I would quite like it if there was like a snug like foam blade or something that you could put over the top of it. Meanwhile, over in America, those weapons just paled in comparison. Yeah, the American weapons are a bit of an embarrassment, especially the blaster. I mean, that thing is laughable. I basically just bought it for the sake of comparison. I didn't even want it. But yeah, it exists. It exists. The saber is a bit better, although it doesn't recognise keys in the way that the Japanese chamber does. It does give you red, green and blue light effects all together at once in its attack sound effect when a key is inserted. So at least they've done something. And I think proportionally the American saber looks better because you don't have a big handle and a stubby saber. It's all proportionally right, even if it is a bit small, and actually pretty much the same size as the Japanese one all in all anyway. Obviously far less paint on the American incarnations, but I bought them because I had so many of the Ranger keys. I thought, well, may as well have something else to do with them, and actually that's how I ended up with the cannon as well. The Gokaiger Galleon Buster is certainly better in that the keys can be inserted sideways and all spring up into the center, whereas in America, nah, you don't get that. You can twist the back key and you can insert 4 keys in the front, but those chambers don't move, although you do get some flying discs on the front. How about that? I remember buying it on sale. It was at least half price, maybe even less, and thought, yeah, sure. The Japanese one seemed too big and too expensive, and this enabled me to have one of them. Yeah, the Super Megaforce Silver Morpher, it's quiet. The keys are all just one piece that just activate a couple sounds on loop. This is just laughable. I mean, it was like a $15.99 product at the time. So yeah, it was sold for the price of the amount of effort they put into it. I didn't buy it when I saw it in a shop. So it was years later, pretty much recently, when I finally managed to find one where the price didn't seem like it was extortionate. I mostly wanted it because I still didn't have a Silver Ranger key for Super Megaforce, and yeah, I finally solved that, although the Super Megaforce silver key that I got, whoever had it first had broken the spring, but at least it still closes, so whatever. In Japan, meanwhile, you do have some keypad action, and also it has that little cool spring-loaded Morphe effect thing. I don't know what you call it, but yeah, it looks and resembles the show version much better. They both have slots on the bottom for their Super Mega mode, although actually only the Japanese one actually recognises something being put in there. Unfortunately, it doesn't actually need to be the anchor key. You can put anything in there and it will still activate that sound. Have I convinced you with this one then? Yeah, I think the Japanese roleplay stuff just leaps and bounds ahead of Bandai America. And finally on to the Zord differences, and most of you already know this from other videos that I bought all of the Gokaiger Zords because they're better. They're bigger, they actually integrate the spring-loaded compartments gimmick really well. The Ultimate Legendary Megazord actually looks right and has its emblem sticker on by default. You don't need to go to a third party and buy an alternate sticker for it. Everything about the Japanese DX Zord line was brilliant, and also the fact that you could even get versions from Korea, which is what I did for some of them, that are cross compatible and just have different sounds and some decals, like Mac Alcon. The race car Zord has a Power Ranger on the wheels, which was a nice touch actually. Never had any regrets having bought those. The only gripe I do have, and some of you hopefully know a solution to this, one of the swords on the Ultimate Legendary Megazord crown doesn't fit. It just kind of flicks off, so I use blue tack to hold it in place. So something's not right. I don't know if the friction peg on the red crown is just a little too long. Yeah, let me know if you know a solution to that. Over in America for the Super Megaforce Zord line, well, at least they managed to do all of them in a year. That was impressive, right? Yeah, they really lent into Zord Builder and they made all the auxiliary Zords armor that clipped on top of Legendary Megazord. I just did not appreciate that approach. And although there were 2 cool surprises in that they gave us a Zeo auxiliary Zord, which doesn't exist in the Sentai or the footage, and actually they integrated a secondary mode into the Ninja Storm Zord and gave us an in space form, which was pretty cool as well, because actually in the show there is a point where it uses the Mega Winger's wing backpack, and so this was a way that you could kind of simulate that. Oh, and actually the third thing that I liked about Bandai Bandai America Zord line was that they gave Turbo Falcon its own Megazord mode, and that's one big race car that takes up quite a lot of floor surface area, so yeah, it's awesome that they gave it a Megazord mode, and that is something I am quite jealous about. I don't think it's the best Megazord ever, but the fact that they were able to give it a freestanding kind of warrior mode, kind of on par with the two other Megazords of the series, just makes so much sense, and makes you think that Japan were actually in the wrong for not integrating that themselves. Oh god, it sounds like I'm starting to come around to the Super Megaforce Zords, doesn't it? Ugh, we'll have to see how this goes in the next few years. But yeah, the Super Megaforce Zords, I will stress, for most people will be absolutely adequate, and certainly look fine in most of the modes. It's just really those auxiliary Zord modes, and definitely the Wild Force Lion Zord in all of its modes, that lets the side down. It's weird that Super Megaforce was such a letdown. Like, obviously the extended version of Legendary Battle is pretty good, and the fact that we managed to get these suits and this Sentai into Power Rangers in the first place in this day and age is actually quite an achievement when so many get skipped. I like the returning cameos, I like obviously all the Sentai footage. I think Bandai actually really embraced the theme for the toy line, and actually there was just a wealth of stuff for Super Megaforce. I mean, I didn't need to buy it all, but really I was buying something pretty frequently while that show was on the air. And then over in Japan, obviously you have the Sentai. I came into it much later, like 2013, so it was long over by the time I fully watched it all. After Gokaiger, I did watch the series that became Dino Charge, but while I liked it, I didn't love it, whereas Gokaiger, I loved it. And I was telling people I knew how great it was, trying to get some friends to watch it. They had no interest in Power Rangers or Sentai, but that's how much I was in its corner. I really wanted people to just appreciate just how good it was. It really just brought together so many elements that I liked. Like, even something as basic as just acknowledging other series was such an achievement, because it's not really the done thing. Then of course Zords that I actually liked again. Zords that represent pretty much every kind of Zord that you can get in Power Rangers or Sentai as well. The pirate theme I really liked. The idea of Ranger Keys, the morpher that let them turn into anyone, everything just harmoniously fit together really perfectly. And of course the characters in Sentai were just really cool, really likable. They didn't dance, they weren't goofy, they were a little morally duplicitous or in a grey area when they first started, but you kind of knew they were doing the right thing, even if not for the normal reasons. Yeah, Gokaiger was and still is just the ultimate for me. And you know, some people do find it overhyped, and certainly I might have just done that now. If you've never seen it before, you might go and watch it and wonder what I was going on about. So, you know, prepare yourself suitably. It's no like Dark Knight trilogy, but it is just superior to anything else, at least at the moment. Just everything was so well thought out, and yeah, I really appreciate that we got it for Power Rangers, even if it wasn't as good as what they got in Japan. So I hope you found this interesting, and now you understand the differences between what Japan and what America got for this incarnation. Let me know your thoughts and what you maybe have bought or still want from either version, and yeah, until next time, see you later.